She has been named one of the top PR influencers in 2021 and has one of the top 25 must read PR blogs. One visit to Michelle Garrett's Twitter feed, and you will know why she is one of the top PR leaders on the internet. She is all things PR, but she is also all things freelance. Her freelance chat every Thursday on Twitter is wildly
Also,
successful,
all things freelance.
where people turn to for tips and ideas on how to move their freelance business forward. She's also the co-host for Friday's Twitter Space PR Lunch Hour. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I'm great. It's so great to have you here finally.
Thank you so much for having me. I know. I feel like, we know each other, but it's I don't know. It's always nice to have this one-on-one conversation. So thank you for having me.
Well, we're always face to face every Friday. Not face to face, but ear to ear every
Right.
Friday. But this is our first face to face.
Right.
So, describe the work you do and what led you into this field.
Well, let's see. I am a public relations consultant and freelance writer. And I do kind of both equally with my clients. I do a lot of writing for them, and I also help them place earned media articles and get media attention. So those are probably, equal parts of what I do. I really got into this because I love writing. I have always been a writer from the time I was a little thing under the tree with my notebook, writing before we really had computers, honestly. So I have been at it quite a while, and I have a degree in journalism, and PR is kind of just a way to blend a lot of the things that I really enjoy into one profession.
So, did you know there was a freelance isn't free act in New York City?
Mhm.
And it is quite interesting to read because I don't know if there is one anywhere else.
Yeah, no, I don't know if there is either. New York is kind of a leader, I think, in that way. But I've seen, I believe, Freelancers Union, which has a website, and I've written for their blog, and they have a lot of resources for freelancers. I believe they are part of that or involved in that. And that's, I think, where I heard about it. But I do think New York's kind of ahead of the curve on that.
Okay, so one of the things that I usually tell people when you're a freelance writer and freelance whatever
Hmm.
um, is that you're always looking for work. You're always looking for clients. So it's like you're perpetually unemployed.
Right. That's
So, with that in mind, I don't know about your family, but does your mother or your family still ask you when you're going to get a real job?
It's so funny because I have been doing this for so long now, that I think, I've become, people kind of understand that I work for myself, but I still wonder if they really get it because I have a sister who will act like, well, you can just drop everything at the, whatever you want and just come and go and do what you want. And I mean, it is like that to a degree, but also I have clients that I have to, be available for. And, if I have a meeting or something I'm doing, I can't just, stop and run out to meet somebody or do an errand or whatever. I do those things when I plan them in my schedule. That's the beauty of working for yourself, in my opinion. But yeah, there are people that I don't think really get it. Like, I really think they think that you're sitting at home, like doing your laundry or doing your nails, or I don't
Or
think
doing
they really
nothing?
get it. Yeah, right. Like, you're just watching, shows all day, watching Netflix or whatever. But there's so much more to it. I mean, and I don't, that's another point though that I would say is that it's not for everybody. Because if you don't have any self discipline and you are just kind of, a person that gets off track and, you could end up doing other things rather than working all day. It could happen. I mean, I hear people talk about that and certainly have experienced it myself where you get distracted with something and, there it goes. So there goes your day. So you have to balance it. But yeah, I don't think people fully understand, but I do think it's becoming a little bit, people understand a little bit better than they used to than when I started for sure, because I started out in California where it was pretty common to work for yourself. But back here where I'm at now in Ohio, it's like when when I was living here before I moved, people were not really doing that, not really working for themselves that much here and there, but not a lot.
With the real job, outside of retail, because retail is very unstable, it usually brings you stability and the regular paychecks so that you kind of know when you're going to be getting paid every month. But with freelance, it's very unstable. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to eat. And but there's that trade-off, freedom for stability. And once you've had the freedom, how hard is it to go back to a real job, so to speak?
I think it would be pretty hard because I've never done it, right? So, I have been approached and interviewed a couple of times over the years for regular jobs, what I call regular jobs, full-time jobs. And it's just really, my heart wasn't in it. Like, I just can't imagine the feeling of giving this up because it feels like freedom to me. And to me, that's just worth so much. Yes, I am making a living at it. And I mean, certainly I've had my ups and downs as far as, better years and worse years and all of that. So I'm not going to like sit here and say, I hate the whole 6-figure freelance thing. I kind of just I don't buy into that always. I mean, yes, you have to support yourself, but it shouldn't be only about that. And for me, it's definitely not only about the money. So,
Yeah. So also, looking at, being a full-time freelancer, how important is it for independent contractors, freelancers, or entrepreneurs
mhm.
to have their own website? Or can they, and if you can't afford a website, what's
Mhm.
an alternative that you would suggest?
Well, we talked about this on Freelance Chat pretty recently. We talk about it off and on because there's really there are some people that firmly believe that you do not need your own site to freelance, and I'm not going to say you absolutely have to have it, but if you are a deliberate career freelancer, which I have been pretty much since the beginning, I started with this website on day one. It was a brochure site, and it was very simple back then. And of course, now it's I have a blog, and I still don't really sell anything on my site, so it's pretty simple. And that's why I feel like it's really important to have something up there that it's your owned ground, as opposed to having like a LinkedIn page, which some people I've had, a couple exchanges with. There's a person on Twitter who just swears that all you need is a LinkedIn presence. I'm like, well, if that works for you, that's fine. But I would definitely argue for, having a home, a base, which is your site, and then also doing social media. So that's what I would say.
Would you post? What's your thought about posting prices on a website? There are some people who do post prices, and there's some
Right.
people who don't. But with freelance work, it's very difficult if you customize your projects.
Yes, and that's always been kind of my position, is that I do customize and I don't do cookie cutter, it's the same for every, but I am going to be publishing a little bit of pricing, and I'm going to test it out to see how it works, because I have been strongly encouraged to do that. And I've been convinced that it might help me in a couple ways. It might help me get more of my ideal clients, and also help like kind of weed out anybody who is just doesn't have the budget. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I respect, especially like solo business folks and smaller businesses that don't have the budget. But I just am at a point where I don't really think it's worth my time and effort to work with somebody who just really, wants to write one press release and call it a day. There's somebody for that job probably out there, but it's not necessarily me.
Also, when we're posting prices, it's very well, even just pricing in general is very difficult. I think that everybody, particularly women in business, it seems, struggle with trying to figure out what the pricing is. Even if you're accomplished and you've been doing the job for 20 years, it's still difficult coming up with that price point so that you still attract the people that you want to attract, and maybe, like you say, weed out the ones that can't afford you.
Right. Because I mean, there's a lot of tire kickers out there too. And I mean, I have always been really open to talking to just about anybody who gets in touch with me, but I've kind of stopped thinking that way, because I think, I'm probably at a point where I'm not necessarily looking for new clients as much as I used to be, because I have some steady clients that have stayed with me and I really enjoy working with them. And so I'm very selective now. And also, it just wastes a lot of your time to take those calls. I mean, and the other thing is, you'll take the call, 30, 60 minutes on a call, then I'll do a proposal. Maybe I don't do like a 20-page proposal, but a quote with some, ideas, some scope of work on there. That takes me, another 30, 60 minutes. And then you send it and you never hear back from them in some cases, which is just rude. They ghost you, which some people say, well, that's just part of working for yourself and you have to just go on. But it's true. It is. But like, I just am tired of that, I don't want, I'd rather have people kind of like just disqualify themselves before they even, take me down that path of just kind of wasting everybody's time, honestly.
Yeah, that's true. So, like anyone else who has a freelance income, you have to declare taxes on the money that you earn.
Right.
And in Canada, depending on what type of freelance work you're doing, you can claim pretty much. For me as a writer, I can claim my streaming and my, besides the telephone, the internet, all the tools that you use to research and, look things up and that you need for your work. Because, sometimes depending on the type of work you do, you have to stay on top of pop culture, which is where, cable comes in.
Right.
But if you're in broadcasting or you have, a paid gig where you have to be present, your face is your product,
Mm-hmm.
you can write off your makeup, your hair salons, and all that stuff. Is
Mm-hmm.
it the same in the US? Are you able to write off a lot of things on your freelance income?
Well, I really count on my accountant to help me with that. And yes, you can with some things, but I think it is a little bit, um, it just depends on, what kind of freelance work you're doing, I guess. And then, like I say, I just depend on him because the tax laws and the code changes every year, it seems like, and he knows all of the ins and outs, and he works with other self-employed professionals. And so he really is the expert that I turn to for that, because I, for one thing, do not want to get myself in any kind of trouble with my taxes, because I've heard some real horror stories about that, and people not paying their quarterly taxes. We have to pay that here every quarter we
Mm.
pay. And if we don't, you can get penalized. Maybe you underpaid. At the end of the year, you'll have to, make it up. And so it can be really, that part can be a little intimidating. So that's why the first person I hired when I went on my own was an accountant to help me.
Good idea. So, we pay taxes, we run businesses, and however, how often, if we would be a millionaires if we had a dollar for every time we heard, this will give you great exposure. This is good for your portfolio. Or I need you to take this test for me before I hire you. How many times have you heard that?
Yeah, I know that's one of your pet peeves. I mean, uh, yeah, certainly. I mean, I think people will try to get you to jump through as many hoops as they can get you to jump through, and you have to be the one to push back a little bit, um, on things that you don't feel are fair. I definitely have written for I guess it would be for exposure. I've written without being paid for it, but I did have an end in mind. I had a goal in mind, and it did help me reach that goal. And so a lot of the things, if somebody asks me to comment and they're writing an article, I'll do it. I mean, and I feel like that does help me
Mhm.
kind of build a presence, and people, read that or maybe see me somewhere, and maybe we'll get in touch when they need help. So I feel like there's a balance between things that are like wrong. And then there's also kind of a gray area where people aren't really trying to take advantage of you necessarily. You're getting something out of it. So you would say, yes, you're both benefiting from it. So I kind of fall in the middle a little bit on that, but I know what you're saying. And I don't do writing tests because I have examples. If
Oh,
they see how I write, I can send them some examples. I'm happy to do that. Or they can just go online and go, look up my portfolio and everything there, too. So I don't understand the need for that. And I think that's just making people jump through a hoop that,
yeah.
why?
Yeah, it's a it's a question for sure. Also, you're right about, doing some things for free and
Hmm.
interning and doing what some of the things, and I I look at it too as when, particularly when I started in the National Hockey League, I was not being paid for it. It was kind of started out as an intern position, but I used it as a networking opportunity to find, I ended up getting a lot of paid gigs out of result of it. And, and it just moved my career so forward. So you have to do things if you want to do something really bad enough. Sometimes you have to do them for free in order to get your foot in the door. And you're right about the exposure, but only if you have control of it. Only if it's something that's in your favor. Like if Ford's doesn't want to pay you, but wants you to write you an article, wants you to write an article, then you might go for that because it's got a big reach and
Hmm.
puts you on the map. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that helped me a lot when I was, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I just started writing for PR Daily about things that I was passionate about in the industry, and it led to more, opportunities for me and other writing gigs. And just, I mean, I love that. So, I mean, I would do that anyway, but it does help me. Helps me get business too. So I think there's an advantage for me in doing
Yeah.
it.
So which came first? PR lunch hour or freelance chat?
Freelance Chat is, I just was looking at LinkedIn. I was looking at my profile over there. It's 3 years and 7 months old. It's what it says over there. So I launched it in September of, oh gosh, so it'll be 2018, I guess. It'll be 4 years old this year. And PR Lunch Hour is a year old. So, but they're both really thriving. And I mean, to me, it just underscores the need and importance of, both of those topics and areas of interest for people. I see more people freelancing, and I see a lot of people interested in comms and PR because they understand, to build trust with your audience, you need, pros to help you with that and get your name out there and be out there where people can get to know you, and that way they can trust you and look to you when they need you to provide a service or a product or whatever it might be.
So tell us a bit about freelance chat and for those that might not know what it is.
Well, it's a Twitter chat. It's every Thursday at noon Eastern. We specifically chose that time. I worked with some friends, in different locations around the world because I wanted it to be accessible to anyone, anywhere. And so we picked a time when people, across the pond and other locations could join us. And we get people from the West Coast, of course. It's earlier out there and later in Europe. And so we get people from all over, really. And it's really anybody that works for themselves. So some people have thought because I do freelance PR, it's only for PR people. No, no, no. It's for anyone that is self-employed, freelance, that's a consultant. We have people that work in all kinds of areas: graphic design, website development. Of course, we have a lot of writers. just people in content. I mean, people in all areas. A lot of it is marketing, but we talk about topics that would be, benefit anybody that works for themselves.
So I have to ask, how did you hook up with Tanya McKenzie and Tamara Sykes for that PR lunch hour?
That was just me being on Twitter, right? And just running my mouth on Twitter, which we know that I like to do that. So, yeah, I mean, I met her, and very shortly after that, I think, I don't know if when she and Tam connected, but then she asked if we were kind of complaining about something in the industry. We had some kind of beef that we were talking about. I think that she asked if we would want to try a space, and I didn't. I At that point it was really new, and I had not been to one or done one, and so I was like, well, why not? Like what's there to lose, right? So, and here we are, and so we've I really didn't know either one of them before that very well, so it's been really fun to get to know them. And it's just, I mean, again, people from all over the world come, and it's so just, I mean, to me, learning and hearing from all those people that come is the best part, because I feel like it just makes me feel so much more connected to what's going on all over, as opposed to just in my own little backyard or my own little corner of Twitter or my own little, city or region or whatever. So I really appreciate that a lot.
And our experiences are universal. They're not specific to one country.
Right. That's also very interesting, because you hear people, yeah, all over saying kind of the same things. But it just really warms my heart to hear that, A, we all have struggles, and B, people can get around those struggles. And, like, we share our wins, we share our challenges. Of course, we talk a little hot topics, which is always fun, because I think we all have, opinions about things, and we have nowhere really to share it, other than just posting on Twitter. Look at this article about this crazy thing that happened, but we can actually talk about it. And it's, there's not only one take on it. I mean, there's more than just your opinion about anything. I mean, this week is going to be a really
You
interesting.
think?
A
Yeah.
lot of angles on that one, so we'll see how
Yeah.
it's out.
But for the future on this broadcast, that means the slap on the Oscars.
Right, exactly. Slap
Yeah.
around the
Just
world,
Google it.
really. If it doesn't know about it, I'll be shocked, but I'm sure there's
Exactly.
somebody who doesn't know. But
So I find that, especially for writers, a lot of people really do expect you to work for free or for rubles. And can you help me with my resume? Or I just need this long blog piece. So, how do you handle some of these asks?
Mhm,
Particularly if it's a job you want to do, but they
mhm.
kind of think that it's not going to take you very long to do it, when in essence it's going to be a 2-day job.
You mean, like, how do I work around just getting?
The dumb questions like
Yeah.
that.
Well, and I mean, people do ask a lot of things, and that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I had to ask that of the community, because, on Twitter, I was like, well, what do I do if I feel that they're kind of over asking. Like, I mean, I'm
Mm.
happy to help. And I was just thinking about this. Like, I am so happy if somebody needs something amplified, if somebody has a quick question, I'm more than happy to answer and help if I can. But sometimes they do just kind of, like, out of the blue come up with something, and it's like, well, now I'm going to have to research that, because I don't just know. Maybe they think you know everything. Maybe maybe that's what it is. I mean, I know, like, I do know a lot of stuff, but, like, I don't know everything. I don't specialize and have it right on the tip of my brain every time somebody asks me a question. I have to go Google it, just kind of like they would have to do. So, um, it's hard, because, you don't want to look like you don't want to help people. And that's how I'm always afraid it's going to come off. But by the same token, I have clients that are paying me to do work, and, I have to focus on that. And I did just recently set up a link that's connected to PayPal, a Calendly link. So if somebody wants to pick my brain, and like I feel like
I
it's kind
love
of
it.
overstepping, I'll send them, I'll say, hey, yeah, you can sign up right here. And then they prepay and I'll get on a call or whatever with them. But at least it kind of cuts down a little bit on overstepping that. I think there's just a balance there. I hope that sounds like how I want it to sound.
I love that actually. That's a very cool idea. So what are I mean, you don't have to name names, but what are some of the cool projects that you've worked on? The ones that you really thought were a lot of fun?
Oh my gosh. Well, one of my very first clients an inventor of a flying machine, and I'm not kidding. It was like a device that you step into, and it had these big like rotors on the top, and he actually got it to a point where it would take off and fly off the ground for a very short amount of time. But to get it any further, he would have really probably had to have like NASA or some other um, you know, company invest in it. And so it never really flew, for lack of a better term. But he was really fun, and he was out in the Bay Area. And we got that. We had press from all over, again, all over the world. We had like the ABC Evening News, we had the Sunday London Times, we had, every science magazine, and just, I mean, the papers, and like it was crazy. It was really fun too, because he was on a budget, and at the time I was new, running my business. Like I just, I probably should have charged him way more than I did. But we kind of tried like a strategy. We would go to the Associated Press, and we would have that reporter come out. And of course, when he wrote the story, we would give it to him exclusively, and then it would just run everywhere because the Associated Press distributes all over. So that was a really interesting and fun project, and that's just something I'll never forget doing. So
Cool. So even though you manage PR for other people, you have to have your own PR in order for
right,
people to find you, right?
right.
So what advice would you have for other freelancers on how to network and maybe where to network uh, to do their own PR, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to talk about your wins, right? You have to be comfortable or get comfortable talking about yourself, because if you don't talk about yourself, who is going to? And some people will say, well, my clients will talk about me. I don't have to do it. I shouldn't have to, or I'm too shy. I'm embarrassed. That's fine, but I wouldn't rely on it, because honestly, everybody's busy. I mean, if they write you a nice review, which you should be asking them for a testimonial, for one thing, they might share it with somebody they know, but the odds are that you're going to have to share it. You're going to have to be the one to put it on your website, to put it on your social media. And don't be shy about it. I mean, there's an off-putting way to do it, I think, but you can also do it in a way that people are like, wow, good for you. Like that's really good. And that's what I love. One thing about PR Lunch Hour is that, Tanya always starts with having us share our wins, because I think we forget we're so hard on ourselves. We're so quick to like be hard on ourselves and look at all our fails. Like, what did we do that was wrong this week? Well, what did we do that was right? And how did we get there? Like, what did we do that really worked? And maybe by sharing that, it might help somebody else. So I like the way that we do that on Fridays. But I definitely think you have to not be afraid to toot your own horn and really just get the word out about what you're capable of, and do leverage, credibility through your clients and people who have worked with you to help you tell that story, for sure. But don't hide your light.
Okay, this is a question I have to ask you because I just want to know, how many times has your cat stepped on your keyboard?
Wow. That the number is infinite, right? Because he was just up here. If I closed the door before we got on here because I was afraid he would come in and cry. He wants up on my desk. And then he walks around. I was talking to somebody the other day, and here he is, sashaying across the desk and right in front of the Zoom. And I'm like, okay, well, but to me, I I don't see it as a bad thing, as long as he doesn't accidentally like close a document or send an email or something like that. So
I asked that question because I had this orange cat Luke, and I would do that. I would lock him out, but he would be so loud and scratching at the door. I just had to let him in and just deal with whatever happened. So
yeah. Yeah, he's probably outside the door. I haven't heard him yet, but if he hears me in here talking, he'll be like, "What gives?" Like.
yeah. So what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Oh wow. Um, Gosh, that's so hard. I mean, the quote that I live by is the Maya Angelou: "People will forget what you say, people will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you make them feel."
Mhm.
And I mean, I live by that, and I also feel like as I work with, clients, B2B clients even, we have to remember that on the other end of whatever we're promoting or marketing or talking about are human beings that are doing the buying, that are building the relationship, and that are having the trust for the brand or whoever they're buying from. And so we have to remember that our actions kind of speak as loud as our words do, and we just kind of have to walk our talk. And I think that that's just a guiding principle for me all the time.
Well, that is the absolute perfect way to end this broadcast. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me. This was fun.
Awesome.